Hello everyone, my name is Anshu Pandit. I'm your civics educator at Study Room. I welcome you all here. Today we are going to start with a new chapter, that is chapter number 5 of class 10 civics, popular struggles and movements. In the previous chapters we got to know about various forms of power sharing and how these occur in various tiers of the government. Okay, in this chapter we will deal with how several struggles, movement influence the politics of the government, how ordinary citizens try to exert influence or their role within the democratic forum. So let's start with the chapter, that is chapter number 5, popular struggles and movement. Let's go. So, movement for democracy in Nepal. Before it started, this mass movement for democracy happened in 2006. Before that, what was happening there? Like, Nepal is one of those countries which belong in third wave for democratization. Okay, so what exactly is third wave in democratization? Basically, it is several scholars determine that there are 3 waves in which democracy was established within various countries. First was in the beginning of 19th century, where various European countries wanted to be democratic. And then the second wave started after the World War that happened. Like, for example, India, that was also in the second wave of democratization. In third wave, it happens that those countries which get democracy after 1990s, these are known as third wave democratic countries. Okay, so Nepal, all the Nepal won this democracy in 1990s, that is the third wave, and the king remained the head of the state. So what was happening in Nepal till 2005 was constitutional monarchy. Constitutional monarchy. So what exactly is constitutional monarchy? It is just basically that thing in which the king is formally remained as the head of the state. King is the head of the state, right? But the real power is exercised by the popularly elected representatives. King as head of the state, power exercised by representatives or government. Okay, representatives or parliament. Let's take it parliament as well. Yeah. So this was happening till 2005. But what happened after that? King Gyanendra, he was the king, who was the king of Nepal till 2005. He was King Gyanendra. He dissolved the parliament. That led to what? This mass movement starting from 2006. So what happened? At that time, he was very critical of accepting that transition from like a constitutional monarchy to a democratic form of a government. And also in some event, what happened, like a mysterious massacre what happened at that time, in which like around 12 members of the royal family were killed in that time. That happened in 2001. So King Gyanendra was a king of the Nepal. He was not really prepared to accept democratic form of a government, and he was like very critical about it. So that's why what he did, King Gyanendra dissolved the parliament in 2005, and this led to what? This led to this mass movement starting in democracy in 2006. The movement of April 2006 was aimed at regaining the popular control over the government from the king. Okay, so basically this was for democracy that happened in 2006. In a way to gather more support from the people, what happened? All the major political parties, as we can see, major political parties formed this alliance, 7-party alliance. So various major political parties came together and formed this alliance that was known as 7-party alliance, and it called for what? A 4-day strike. This was by the 7-party alliance and the Maoists. They conducted a 4-day strike, which was basically for the restoration of democracy. This was basically for restoration of democracy. But however, what happened? This 4-day strike tend to be like for infinite number of days, until when their demands for democratic form of a government would be accepted. Okay, so this protest soon turned into an indefinite strike, in which Maoist insurgents also played a very important role by joining the hands. So right now, how many people were like who were involved in this? There was 7-party alliance was there, and Maoist. They both conducted a 4-day strike, which later turned out to be an indefinite strike. Okay, which led to which was basically for the restoration of democracy. Shocking thing was that the number of protesters who reached around between 3 to 5 lakhs. So if we talk about the protesters who were involved in this, it was around 3 to 5 lakh. This is like a lot of people were involved on 21st April. if we talk about on 21st April, okay. And they served an ultimatum to the king. What they gave? They gave an ultimatum that their demands have to be to the king fulfilled by that particular date. So the leaders of that movement rejected the half-hearted concessions that were given by the king. They stuck to the demands for the restoration of the parliament, and they continued their protest till then. Their demands have to be fulfilled. They wanted restoration of parliament, power to all the party governments, and a new constituent assembly. These were the basically what their demands were. On 24th April 2006, the last day of ultimatum, that was, the king accepted, was forced to succeed all the three demands. The SPA chose Girja Prasad Koirala as the new prime minister. Okay, so 7-party alliance, they chose Girja Prasad Koirala as the new prime minister of this interim government. So by taking away most of the powers from the king, the SP and the Maoists came to understanding about how the new Constituent Assembly was going to be elected. Or in 2008, what happened? The monarchy was abolished. Nepal became a federal democratic republic, and in 2015, it adopted a new constitution. The struggle of Nepali people of this act as an inspiration to various democratics all over the world. So as we can see, there were 3 demands which was raised by the people, this 7-party alliance and Maoists, in order to give their ultimatum. When they gave the ultimatum, they raised 3 demands. Number 1 demand was the demands for restoration of the parliament, power to all the party government, and number 3 is the new constituent assembly. Okay, I can write it here as well. That is restoration of parliament, power to all party government, and a new constituent assembly. Constituent assembly leading to what? Constitution also. Okay, so these were the demands which was raised by the 7-party alliance or Maoists, or the people who were basically going on an indefinite strike on the topic of restoration of democracy. So that's how we can say who was the prime minister for the interim government, which was made by 7-party alliance. It was Girja Prasad Koirala. Okay, let me write it here only. Girja Prasad Koirala. Okay. So this is what happened in Nepal, the whole movement and the whole scenario that happened in Nepal. So these situations were taking place. In 2008, the monarchy was totally abolished, and then in Nepal became a federal democratic government, federal democratic republic form of a government. And in 2015, it adopted a new constitution. So what were the changes if we talk about? Monarchy was abolished. 2008, monarchy abolished. Right, and then we have and Nepal became a federal democratic republic. Nepal, federal democratic republic. And in 2015, what happened? Constitution was adopted. Constitution adopted. Okay, let's move ahead to the next story. So from this, what we got to know about how people started a strike against the king in order to remove the constitutional monarchy, abolish it, and restore the democracy within the country. So there were several demands that were raised by them, and it started in 1990s. That was also known as third wave country in form of democratization. They transformed from a constitutional monarchy to a federal democratic republic, Nepal. And in 2015, constitution was adopted. In this way, we can say that how the demands of the people are playing a very important role in the politics of that government, basically by mass movement and popular struggle in it. Okay, so that's how we can say these popular struggles and mass movement play a very important role. Okay, so let's move to the next slide that we have. As I have talked about earlier as well, that is Girja Prasad Koirala was chosen as the interim prime minister in 2008. Monarchy was abolished in also 2008, and new constitution was adopted in 2015. So he is Girja Prasad Koirala, and there were several Maoists who joined the SPA in this 4-day strike, if we talk about, okay, which turned into an indefinite strike later on. So that's how he was the new prime minister of interim government in 2008, and monarchy was abolished and new constitution was adopted in 2015. Let's move ahead to the new case that we are going to talk about, the next case, that is the Bolivia's water war. Okay. So Bolivia's water war is basically, Bolivia is present in is a very small country that is in Latin America. Bolivia was pressurized by a World Bank to sell off its municipal water supply to MNCs. Bolivia was a very poor country if we talk about in Latin America, and it was pressurized by the World Bank to sell off its municipal water supply to MNCs. After selling out, what happened? The MNC water supply policy resulted in a very high water bills which were unaffordable to most of the people, because like around 5,000 rupees was their income, average income for any particular family, and getting a water bill of around 1,000 rupees was a lot, was very high water bills, which was unaffordable to most of the people of that area. So as a result, what happened in 2000, the country saw a widespread protest which was led by the Alliance of the Labour, Human Rights and other communities taken. So under this, what happened? Under the pressure, the government had agreed to the terms of the negotiation, because they had to, because there was a lot as we can see, the prices of water were hiked by like around 4 times, leading to what? A 4-day strike in 2000. This was happening because of the water war that was happening between the municipal water supply, MNCs and the people. Bolivia was a very small country, or a very poor country in Latin America, and the World Bank pressurized them to sell off their municipal water supply to the MNCs. And what they did, the MNCs raised the price of the bill of water bill around 4 times. And this, because they were not able to afford it, most of the people were not able to afford it, this was led to a 4-day strike in 2000. So after that, because of the strike, they pressurized the government to agree to certain terms of the negotiations. However, it yielded no result at all. So this caused the people to start the protest again, all over again. The government tried its best to curl down all sort of protests that were happening at that time. The government had restored to the police brutality and was later forced to introduce martial law as well, to bring the protection against, to basically bring everything under their control. However, if there was any power of the people who won, it was basically the power of the people who won at the last. So the owners of the MNCs were forced to flee from the country, and the water supply was rendered to the government only. So this whole strike that was taking place for 4 days in Bolivia had a very important role by the people in order to maintain their water supply that was happening and their prices of it. The continuous strike resulted into cancellation of the contract, and the MNCs restored the municipal water supply. The MNC had to flee from the country because of that. So this was whole case of Bolivia water war. As we can see, it was the people who raised their demands in order to protect themselves from high water bills. Okay, so this from 4-day strike that was happening in 2000, it led to the government to accept the negotiating demands of the Bolivian people, and this led to the cancellation of the contract with the MNCs and restoration of municipal water supply. So this was the whole case of Bolivia water war. Let's move ahead. Through this, what we got to know, conclusions from these examples, we realize that democracy evolves through popular struggles. The democratic conflict is resolved through mass mobilization. This is resolved through mass mobilization only. And conflicts and mobilization are based on new political organizations. There are certain organizations that support these conflicts and mobilization. So these were the 3 conclusions that we got to know so far through these examples. Okay, then going further to Kittiko Hachiko movement of Karnataka. Okay, so what happened in 1987? The farmers and the locals started a non-violent protest where the people plugged this eucalyptus sapling and replaced them with the other useful plants. So what happened in 1987? The farmers and locals started a protest because they plugged this sapling and replaced them with the other useful plants. So the local protest was against the Karnataka Pulp Wood Limited in 1987. Because of this, they started this Kittiko Hachiko movement of Karnataka. Okay. So what were the organizations which are involved in Nepal and Bolivia? We have read about them before as well. In Nepal, we had 7-party alliance, as we can see, and the Maoists, which were led by the strike in the Nepal. And in Bolivia, we have FEDECOR, which was supported by the socialist parties, and that led to the protest in the Bolivia. Okay. Through these examples, we realized that the common people too joined with these organizations, and this is what gave momentum to the movement that was happening, or strength to the movement. Okay, because of the people who joined these organizations and these pressure groups. Okay, let's further. We got to know about the conclusion. Now, the conclusion of all those cases we have studied so far is that in a democracy, different kind of organization works behind any big struggle. So, various kind of organization works behind any big struggle that happens. Some organization form political parties and form the government to further their interest. So some organization form various political parties and form the government to further their interest. And number third is that other organization form pressure groups to promote their interest. They form various pressure groups in order to promote their interest. Okay. So these were the conclusions that we got to know through these cases till now. Moving ahead, we have pressure groups and movements. So now we are going to talk about the pressure groups and movements. Earlier we talked about how the cases of how they try to influence the demands, so they try to raise the demands and influence the policies of the government in the cases of Nepal and Bolivia. And then we are going to talk about the pressure groups and movement that takes place. Okay, so what exactly is a pressure group or a movement? So pressure groups are organizations which are attempting to influence the government policies. So movements are any form of collective action but are more loosely organized. So we are going to talk about the movements which are formed or they are based on the collective action but are loosely organized, if we talk about. So basically these organizations which are formed when people with common occupation. We are going to talk about people with common occupation, aspiration, people with common occupation, aspiration, interest or opinion. They try to raise what? They come together to achieve a collective action, if we talk about, okay. Or if we talk about is like basically a common objective. So these are known as pressure groups or organizations which attempt to influence the government with common occupation, aspiration, interest, opinions, which come together to achieve a collective action or a common objective, but are loosely organized. We often talk them as loosely organized. So Narmada Bachao Andolan is an example of this people movements that takes place by the people, if we talk about it. Okay, now moving ahead, we will going to talk about through this video, we are going to read about what was exactly Narmada Bachao Andolan and how it tried to play a very important role in the whole process of these movements that were taking place. So Narmada Bachao Andolan is an Indian social movement that was basically headed by various native tribals, Adivasis, farmer, environmentalists, human activists, and with a very large number of dams projects across the Narmada River. So which flows through the states like it was affecting the state of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra. So this Sardar Sarovar Dam, which was in Gujarat, was one of the biggest dams on the river and was one of the first focal points, of the movements. So what happened in this Narmada Dam project aim was to provide irrigation and electricity to the people who were near, like to the above states, the people of like Gujarat, Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh that we talked about. So mode of campaign was in such a way that several things were done, which includes like hunger strikes were taken, then court actions were there, rallies were conducted, gatherings were done in order to and they also started to gain support from various notable film and art personalities, including Amir Khan as well. And this Narmada Bachao Andolan, which was headed by spokespersons like Medha Patkar and Baba Amte. Okay, so and also we often see that Arundhati Roy also played a very important role in this. So this, as we can see in this video, we got to know about how many people were being displaced. Like around 2.5 lakh people were displaced from their homes and were forced to leave that places and to live in those areas which have very less, they lack basic facilities. To get some water, they have to the women have to go around 5 kilometers in order to get some water. They are mainly dependent on rain and everything. So that's how we got to know that this Narmada Dam project have affected the lives of the common people which were living there, the local people of the communities which were living near that dam. So how this led to the fight between the two different opinions of the two different notions that were taking place. One was the opinion of the environmentalists or activists or the people who were supporting the Narmada Bachao Andolan, and the second one who were opposing it. So this movement has brought two different notions. If we talk about the Indian government, which have often argued that the cost of displacement of the whole or which people, it outweighed even the benefit which was being derived from the Narmada project. So that's how we got to know that there were differences between how it got very difficult for the government to basically the cost of displacement. They were not able to provide them the cost of displacement that were faced by the people of the local people, and thus they justified the construction of the Narmada Dam project. However, on the other hand, what happened, no matter how large the benefit was, the social activists or the environmentalists, their opinion was the cost to the society cannot be fulfilled, because the lack of people were suffered because of this. It was affecting the nature as well, and the area of that area basically was affecting that area as well. So the environmentalists wanted to convey that the cost of society cannot be fulfilled by any sort by giving any sort of compensation or anything. So often there have been critical views between both of them. They often say that they are providing drinking water or power generation and irrigation facilities because of this dam project that was taking place. However, it was believed that the NB activists, they were trying to say that this project completion, they have attacked the local people. It have attacked the local people, and by accepting the compensation, they are not even getting the basic facilities which were by displacing that to their new place, if we talk about. So that's how we got to know that these people are being suffering a lot because of the project that has been conducted by the government. Okay. So through this we got to know about this, and other question about rises here through this Narmada Bachao Andolan is that why it is mostly called as a loosely organized movement. If we talk about it, is because the decision making power doesn't rest with any particular organization or anything. It is very informal and flexible in terms of making decisions. That's why we consider it as a loosely organized movement, if we talk about it. Okay, so let's move ahead. We have sectional and sectional and public interest groups, if we talk about. So what happened in sectional ones, it basically focuses on a particular section of the people. It talks about a particular section of people who are being basically affected by that. So the interest groups seek to promote the interest of the particular section or a group of society. For example, if we talk about, we have taking an example of, we have trade unions, we have business associations and professionals, okay, which are the examples of the sectional interest group, which talks about one sectional group or issue, okay, talks about any particular thing basically. So these are not representing the interest of the section of the whole section of society, but only that particular issue or particular group. If they talk about, the members of the organization may not benefit from the cause of the organization that represents. So that represents a common or general interest that needs to be defended. Okay. Defended. So it has examples like FEDECOA, that was in a basically a Bolivian organization. If we talk about it, talks about only that particular concerns or the betterment, well-being of their own members only. Well-being of their own members only. Okay, it doesn't think about the whole society in general. So if we talk about the second one, that is promotional or public interest groups. Okay, it is also known as promotional. Okay, so this second one, it promotes what? Collective good. It talks about the collective good rather than the selective one. It helps the group rather than their own members. Help others basically. Okay. and their aim is to help the other groups than their own members. For example, if we talk about like taking example of BAMCEF, BAMCEF, which opposes a caste and social inequalities that were taking place. So what happened in BAMCEF, if we talk about, that is Backward Minority Communities Employees Federation, organization that was largely made up of the government employees that campaigns against the caste discrimination that was taking place. So they think about what? Collective good, whereas sectional one think about any particular sectional issue or interest in. So these were the differences in the sectional interest groups and the public interest groups. Okay. Moving ahead, what we have now, we have movement groups. So these may be single issue movements if we talk about, like Narmada Bachao Andolan and Nepalese movement. However, they are related to more long-term issues like environmentalism or feminism. So they may be on some particular single issue movements only, but they are based on long-term issues if we talk about. So that's why these are known as movement groups. Okay. Then one of the example of this was National Alliance for People's Movement. So this broad movement may have loose umbrella. It have a loose umbrella organization. So that means that it can involve a lot of people, lot of organization within that particular umbrella. So various movements groups on specific issues are the members of NAPM, which coordinates the activities of many movements in India. So the work of NAPM is basically to coordinate the activities of various movements that takes place within the India. Okay, moving ahead, then how do these groups and movements influence politics? So these movements and groups played a very important role by influencing the politics. First example, first we talk about is gaining public support and sympathy for their good. So how they try to do it? By carrying out the info campaigns, organization meetings, and filing the petitions. Okay. So through this, why they try to gain the public support and sympathy for their goals. Then second is they organize protests and strikes disrupting the government movements. So in order to disrupt the government programs or any policy that they don't like, they try to protest and strike for it. Okay. Then the lobbying and advertisements. There are several times when the corporates or everything, they need lobbyists. Okay. So they act as lobbyists or in advertisements in order to influence the politics. Number fourth is their affiliation with political parties. They try to affiliate several like trade unions or student organizations. They try to like almost all trade unions and student organizations affiliate themselves with any major political party in order to like funding and everything and conduct their issues or conduct their events and everything. So they affiliate themselves with political parties so that they could raise their voice and could make changes in the policies of the government or anything by affiliating themselves with the political parties. Number fifth is that formation of new political parties. What happened? That these movements at times, what they do, they try to grow. In order to, they grow themselves and transform themselves from a movement to a political party so that they could influence the politics in better or in a majorly different way. Then dialogues and negotiations with the political parties. So what they try to do, these movements and these groups try to negotiate with the political parties so that they could influence several policies or they could raise their demands and voice their opinions to make changes in the policy that were conducted by the government. Okay. So is their influence healthy? So the question arises with us is that these pressure groups try to influence the politics by several ways, as I have mentioned earlier. So is their influence healthy? It cannot be held accountable. But the one thing is about pressure groups is that they cannot be held accountable, unlike the political parties, as they are accountable to the people, but pressure groups are not. But they are essential for healthy democracy. It is very important for us to have a healthy democracy. Pressure groups play an important role in ensuring a healthy democracy. They ensure balance of power. Why? That through pressure groups, ordinary citizens are able to voice their opinion. They are able to raise their opinion among the political parties, and that's why through this they are able to keep a check on the political parties as well. It maintains a check or balance, as we have studied before, the balance of power. Try to maintain balance of power, raise their opinions, raise their demands, raise any differences of they have with the government, if we talk about. So that's why we can say these pressure groups are not held, although they are not held accountable, however, they played a very important, essential role for healthy democracy. Okay. Now we are going to talk about the Green Belt movement that was taking place, okay, in Kenya. So in this movement, what happened? So it was basically the Green Belt movement has planted around 30 million trees across Kenya, and its leader was Wangari Maathai. So in 1970s and 1980s, it was very encouraging for the farmers to plant trees on their land. So, however, also discovered that the various corrupt government agents were responsible for such deforestation by illegally selling of their lands and trees to well-connected developers. So, in the early 1990s, what happened? Livelihoods, the rights, and even the lives of many Kenyans in the Rift Valley were lost, and when elements of the President Daniel Arap Moi government encouraged ethnic communities to attack one another over the land. The supporters of the ruling party got the land, while those in the pro-democracy movement were displaced at all. So this was one of the government's way of retaining power. If the communities were kept busy fighting over the land, they would have less opportunity to demand democracy. So in this passage, we got to know the relationship between the democracy and the social movements if we talk about, and how these movements respond to the government. Okay. Let's move ahead to the questionnaire of this chapter. We have question number 1. In what ways do pressure groups and movements exert influence on the politics? So, pressure groups and movement exert influence on the politics in a variety of ways. Let's start with number 1, that they try to gain public support. They gain public support and sympathy for their cause. And how they try to do it? By like carrying out various information campaigns, carrying out information campaigns, then organizing meetings, filling petitions, etc. And number 2 that we have is by organizing strikes and disruptions. They seek to make the government take note of their demands. Organizing the strikes and disruptions. Okay. Organizing the strikes and disruptions. They seek to make the government take note of their demands. Okay, number 1 is they try to gain public support and sympathy for their cause, carrying out information campaigns, organizing meetings, filling petitions, etc. Second is organizing strike disruptions to make government note their demands. And number 3, they try also influence the decision making by lobbying. What they try to do, they influence the decision making process. Decision making by lobbying. And number 4 that we have is the issues which are raised by them are often influencing the policies of the politics. Okay, policies of the political parties. Raise in issues which influence political parties. So that's how we have around like many ways. There are many ways. Out of that, 4 ways are that they gain public support and sympathy for their cause, carrying out information campaigns, organizing meetings, filling petitions, filing petitions and etc., organizing strikes and disruptions to make government note their demands, influencing the decision making by lobbying, raising issues which influence the political parties. Okay. The question number 2 that we have to describe the form of relationship between pressure groups and political parties. So the relationship between political parties and the pressure groups take different forms. If we talk about it like that, number 1 is that pressure groups are often formed and led by the politicians and the political parties. And most trade unions and student organizations in India are either established by or affiliated to one of the political parties. So pressure groups are basically, if we talk about, pressure groups are formed and led by political parties or politicians only. So various, if we talk about trade unions, student organizations, they are more or so affiliated to what? These political parties. some major political parties if we talk about. Okay, then number second, that is that political parties sometimes grow out of the movements, and parties like DMK, AIADMK were formed this way. So various parties grow out of the movement. Okay, like example, if we talk about, we have example of DMK and AIADMK. Okay, number third that we talk about is that many times the issues which are raised by the pressure or movement groups are taken up by the political parties, leading to change in the policies of the whole parties or the government as well. So issues which are raised by pressure groups, or these pressure groups or movements, basically what they do, the issues which are raised by these pressure groups or movements are taken by political parties. Okay, so that's how we can say that describe the form of relationship between the pressure groups and political parties, that pressure groups are formed and led by political parties or politicians, taking example of trade unions or student organizations which are often affiliated to political parties only. Like if student organizations like of ABVP, if you talk about it, is somehow associated with the political party BJP. Then the parties which grow out of the movement, that is DMK, AIDMK, these are the examples of at times parties grew out of the movement as well. Number third is issues which are raised by the pressure groups or movements are taken by these political parties, which play a very important role in the whole political scenario of that state or a country level. Okay, then number third, explain how the activities of pressure groups are useful in the functioning of democratic government. So if we talk about the activities of these pressure groups, how they are functional and useful for the democratic government, they are very important in the functioning of the democratic government, as they provide what? An opportunity to marginalized people to voice their opinions. Opportunity to voice their opinions. To whom? Marginalized people. Okay, it gives opportunity to the marginalized people to voice their opinions. Number second, if we talk about, in some cases the government opinions might be biased by some group or to rich or poor, popular people. It is here that the pressure groups step in and force the government to make policies which benefit certain other sections of the societies as well. Force the government to make policies that benefit other sections, minorities, marginalized ones, disadvantages, if we talk about disadvantaged ones. Okay, so that's how it gives opportunity to the marginalized ones to voice their opinions. Second, they force the government to make policies in the benefit of other sections as well. That includes like minority, marginalized, or the disadvantaged one. Okay, so that's how they not only just look after the rich and the powerful people, but also to the ones which are disadvantaged in the conditions. So what is a pressure group, and give a few examples. So what is exactly a pressure group? A pressure group is an organization. It is an organization which attempts to influence government policies through protests and demonstrations. Attempt to influence government policies through protest and demonstrations. Okay, so pressure groups are formed when people with similar opinion get together for similar objectives. They are formed when people with similar opinions get together for similar objectives. So this is what happens. Organizations which attempt to influence the government policy through protest and demonstration form various, like we can see here, they form when people with similar opinions get together for similar objectives. Like taking an example of we have read so far before as well, FEDECOR, that was in Bolivia, and then BAMCEF, BAMCEF. Okay, so these are the examples of the pressure groups if we talk about. Moving ahead, what is the difference between a pressure group and a political party? So the major difference between a pressure group and a political party is that unlike political parties, pressure groups do not aim to directly control or share the political power. They do not try or aim to directly control or share political power. They just act from outside of this whole scenario. About whom I'm talking about? I'm talking about the pressure groups. They do not try to or like aim directly to control or share political power. They just wanted to influenced it from outside. Okay. Sixth question that we have, that organizations that undertake activities to promote the interests of specific social sections such as workers, employees, teachers and lawyers are called sectional interest groups. So the organizations that undertake activities to promote the interest of specific social sections, let's say example of workers, employees, teachers or lawyers, they are known as sectional interest groups. Okay. So that's how we got to know through these questions. We have read so far about the political parties, how these pressure groups plays a very important role in the influencing the policies of the political parties. Okay, in the next video we will talk about have a quick revision of what we have studied so far in this chapter. Till then, bye bye.